now. Super. All right, welcome everyone to the Flux Dev meeting. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of March. Let me check the agenda. Do we have anyone here who's new who quickly wants to introduce themselves?
I'm actually joining for the first time. Hey guys.
Do you have any particular interest in Flux or this meeting?
Well, not specifically to this meeting, but we as a company, we're currently migrating away from our own tooling around installing Helm charts and Kubernetes clusters towards Flux. So we have a big interest in Flux development in general.
Super. Yeah, thanks a lot and welcome to this meeting and to a community.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I have a quick item. So we talked about moving the Flux v2 docs first from toolkit Flux CDIO to Flux CDIO. I did a bit of work on this already. If you had to, so I'm looking for feedback right now. If you go to Flux CD website, it's PR98. It's a work in progress still, it's a draft PR. And there's a link to a Netlify site. It would help me if we could figure out together what. So in the past meeting, we decided that for some time, it would be fine to both have the toolkit page, which is generated through MKDocs and its own tooling, and to have everything on the Flux CD page for some time until we figured out all the kinks. But it would help me to see what we absolutely need before we can merge this and get going with the. So I'm basically looking for a list of priorities, because there's quite a few small things we want to figure out. Like, for example, Stefan gave some feedback that the navigation bar could be easier to use, that we might want to play around with the size of the fonts and everything, but I think we can figure out that later. There's some auto-generated bits which Hidde wanted to take a look at. So yes, if you could take a look at the draft PR and give me some feedback about what's still missing, and basically so I can.
What promise did I make?
What's that?
I said, what promise did I make?
The promise was that because we have some auto-generated docs, which right now, as far as I understand it, are the Flux command line reference that is
those, yeah.
That we have like front matter, and that we also have a good way of pulling this in. So that's one thing we need to figure out, and then there might be other bits. So some feedback about what you feel is like high priority, so I can organize myself a little better, and then we can merge it and then get some more feedback.
Yeah, I remember what the deal was now. I will take a look at it.
Super. Okay. That was more or less my item already.
Should we just quickly check if there was any action items from the last?
Sorry. Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to interrupt you because if you had to run earlier. So move project board proposal to GitHub discussions. Ooh. I barely remember what happened last meeting. Does anybody remember these action items, what they were about?
One was about the community and event focused people wanting to have some kind of GitHub project board to manage their issues cross repositories, I think. And the other one is actually not, or did not end up in a discussion, but was created in a PR, which is still open and waiting for feedback, which I promised to do yesterday, but didn't end up doing. But that's a PR from Allison. I can link it here.
Okay. No, and this would change the governance. So is this a discussion about some new role within?
Yeah.
Yeah, within the governance structure. Okay. Yeah, we'll try to look at it also, even though my vote doesn't count really. So.
Of course it counts.
Good.
Non-binding.
Yeah, exactly. Great. So Michael, now when you're here, do you want to, you have some standing weekly update regarding image automation?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say on top of last week, other than I've been looking at use cases, various issues, and kind of touching on some of those and made some comments, but not any sort of material progress yet.
Yeah.
Stefan put in a PR to restrict automations to a path within the repo, which I think covers off one of the uses, or let's say one of the things that people expect to be able to do, which is to apply the automation to just one environment, say. So that's good progress. Yeah, but in terms of kind of getting through some of those API design things, I might end up making some progress this week. Maybe a proposal, maybe.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess Kingdon Europe next.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for reviewing my pull request for Flux v1. The release branch is a thing now, and there is a pre-release build that came off of master. I think by the end of the day, I should be able to wrangle up the changelog. The pull request thing I did, the omnibus pull request, did not interact well with the changelog generator. So I have a little bit more manual work, and I might not have saved myself any time at all. But there should be one more pull request that I'll need a maintainer to review, and it's the release branch to merge into. I'm not exactly sure that I do need a review on that, but I will put it in front of someone anyway. And we should have 1.22.0 this week. And besides that, I have a manifest generation tutorial in the Flux 2 repo that is also linked from the doc, which is about 90% ready at this point. I have to finish running through the entire tutorial from end to end just to make sure that it all works. The JSON part in step 3 is the most unpolished at this point, and it's missing still some major content elements, but everything else is tested multiple times and seems to work well. And I think that people who are struggling with the Git SHA deprecation thing or the image build timestamp deprecation thing can use this to help them start their migration.
Great. Any comments before moving on to the next point? These European Times meetings seem to be a lot emptier than the other Thursday community meetings. Yeah, I just added a quick point about the latest release of the Terraform provider. I did a release this morning. The only big change there, and I had some discussions with don't remember his name regarding one of the PRs. Hidde changed may change the way that the secret name or the expected secret name of the sync secret for the bootstrap, how it was generated, which affected the way the provider worked. So before, if you gave a different name to the sync data resource, it would also apply that name to the secret that it expected to exist in the cluster. And now that's changed now to instead use a property called secret instead in the data source. And that for users who expect the name to affect the secret name, it would break their use case. And there was some discussions there about whether we would make this backwards compatible or not. And my personal opinion was that it would be more confusing in the future to do something different compared to the CLI. So my decision there and then was to basically go, yeah, let's use the defaults from the CLI instead of trying to have a backwards compatible way. And I wrote that in the release notes also that was the case. But I don't think that there are going to be that many people who change the name of the secret. I think a lot of people are just following the examples where they set Flux system as a secret name, and that's kind of what Flux expects by default. So that shouldn't really be an issue. Yep. Great. Do we have any more points or actions or topics to discuss today?
I can speak about what's going to happen today or tomorrow with Flux 2. So we are going to release 0.10. This comes with breaking changes to the Flux create image automation command. We are going to change the flags. Right now, you'll be able to set a push branch, which is different from the checkout branch. And that means the controller will commit the image updates to a new branch if the specified branch doesn't exist, or it will update an existing branch. And this allows you, together with GitHub Actions or I don't know, GitLab CI, whatever, to open pull requests for image automation changes. Other things, you can now create a template, specify a template for when the image automation, for the image automation commit message. So you can have something like in Flux 1 where you can list all your all the image tags that were changed. And we also expose other things like what files are changed and which Kubernetes objects. So you can see deployment, pod info, this is the new image, or the actual file name. We don't expose the file path. So if you have generic names like deployment.yaml, it's not going to work. but anyway, seeing the image and object kind and name should give you enough hints to see just in a commit message what changed on the cluster, or what changes are going to be proposed as a pull request. Other stuff, we've upgraded to controller runtime, the latest patch release, and this means we no longer get the log spam with, hey, this thing is deprecated, but there's nothing there to act on because it's a deprecation inside controller runtime internal things. And they removed those logs. So now we'll when you start all the Flux controllers, you'll no longer see tens of logs with, hey, this is deprecated. And yeah, we'll try to update also the image automation guide and tell people how to take advantage of all these new features. And for the CLI, the main feature that we'll be releasing in 0.10 is the Flux logs command that Somtochi has been working on. And what you can do with this command is different from kubectl logs. So what kubectl logs does, it takes a single pod and it writes to your standard out everything that's in the pod logs, right? The containers. What we are doing with Flux logs, we are detecting the structure logs that Flux controllers create, and that means you can filter by log level, error, info, whatever, by kind, name, namespace, and so on. So, for example, if you want to diagnose all the things that are happening in a namespace, you can do Flux logs minus namespace, that particular namespace, and you'll get all the things that are happening with all the objects, all the Flux objects in that particular namespace. Or maybe you want just to monitor what's happening with, let's say, all your Git repositories across your whole cluster. So you can do Flux logs minus kind Git repository, all namespaces, and you get everything there. And you can tail them, you can follow them, and so on. So I think it's a great addition to the CLI user experience. That's it from me.
Great. Are there going to be any additional flags to the bootstrap command that we need to get into the Terraform provider?
Not right now. I'm still working on the Bootstrap refactor, and there are some new flags, like for example, being able to configure the outer of the commits properly, being able to configure if the deploy key is a read-only key or a read-write key, so that it can later be used by the automation controllers. And some other things, but those all don't have an effect on the Terraform module, because the Terraform module only does the generation kind of things, and the Bootstrap package is a layer on top of that.
Yeah, great. I'll take a look after the release just to check that there are no new default options there, because I had missed the extra components option, and somebody asked me, like, how do I solve getting image automation controller into the installation manifests, and I quickly just suggested solving it by modifying the components parameter and just setting all the controllers. But now I added extra components property also. So yeah, it wasn't a blocker. It was just it's nicer to not have to set like source controller, customized controller, notification controller, and all those default things, just to get the image automation controller in. Yeah, let's see here. Do we have any new points? I want to bring up one extra thing now when I have you here, Stefan. That discussion about the issue regarding throttling notification controller. I added asked some counter questions there regarding implementation wise for the CRDs. So the issue for those maybe you don't have the background there is there's an issue regarding the Helm controller spamming Slack notifications when the reconciliation failed due to like values being invalid or something like that, and that would cause like the controller to reconcile and then it would like back off, but it would like reconcile like 12 times in a row, which would result in 12 Slack messages for the exact same failure within like a second. So the suggestion there was that we implement some sort of throttling on the notification controller so you can configure that through your CRD so that you aren't spammed. And my question there was kind of, is it best to implement this configuration in the provider or the alert?
I would, so for the first iteration, I will just implement rate limiting for the involved object name, namespace, kind, and message. Make that the rate limit key,
yeah,
and enable rate limiting for 10 minutes for every single HTTP call, doesn't matter what it does. And let's ship this feature like this, and then see if people want more fine tuning and getting that interval longer. But judging by how control runtime backoff mechanism works, you'll get that spam in the first 10 minutes. Afterwards, the penalty of the backoff will be tens of minutes. So it will just remind you any 20 minutes, 30 minutes, hey, your Helm release is failing, or your customization is failing, or whatever. And it's not only Helm controller. Everything should issue events on a reconciliation error. I don't know if image automation does it, but if it doesn't, we have to add it. So we really need to protect with the rate limiter against this kind of spam. It's okay to see in Kubernetes events that this is happening because Kubernetes has a way of compacting events. So if you send the same event 20 times in a second, in etcd it ends up only once. So Kubernetes already does this type of compactation. So you'll not be, filling etcd with duplicate events. Why? Because also all the Kubernetes native controllers are doing the same stuff. When a pod crashes, it will issue tons of events, but they are the same. So it's not a problem. For notification controller, it is, and we can fix that using a basic rate limiter.
Yeah.
Of course, if you restart notification controller, the limit will be gone because it's in memory only, but I don't see that much of an issue. I don't think we are ready to make notification controller stateful set or I don't know, have some kind of database that keeps all things. It's we can protect against spam with a rate limit. Should be enough.
It just might be nice to add that as a configuration per provider, because there might be somebody with a use case that says, no, I don't want it to be rate limited. I actually just want everything. And if we add it by default, it might be a breaking change for some people. So it can be a configuration that defaults to on, that we say that, okay, so each provider has a rate limit configuration and it sets to 10 minutes. And then if you want to keep it the old way, you can just turn it off for each provider. Let's say that. Because I don't think that there are people with hundreds of providers. Yeah,
I was thinking about having this as an command argument in notification controller. If you set it to 0 seconds, then does not rate limit by default is 10 minutes. Having this in let's say in a provider or an alert object means that on every single request, you have to query the Kubernetes API before you decide if you have to throttle or not. And this can be quite expensive. The way I'm proposing it, you'll not be doing any kind of calls. It's just a plain HTTP middleware, nothing else. It doesn't call out to to Kubernetes API, because if we want to protect against DDoS, but we have to query the API to get all these things, then we'll be DDoSing Kubernetes API. And I know people are exposing notification controller over a load balancer outside of their cluster. And if someone discovers, well, of course, you need GitHub and all the other webhooks to call you, right?
Yeah.
We also have to enable rate limit for that endpoint. That's even more critical because also that endpoint creates API calls. So my idea is have this middleware that is not only for alerts, it's for everything that looks at the body. If, I don't know, there is a bug on GitLab or GitHub that sends you the webhook payload 1 million times in a second, you should block it and accept only one, right? That's my kind of thing. So I would go for a configuration for the whole HTTP server through a command line arc. And then if we see people that, oh, I want to, change the rate limit based on a provider, which I don't think they will ask such a thing, then we can, make more, maybe do a cache, an in-memory cache of our own, of all the objects, and it gets more complicated.
Yeah, but that sounds reasonable. I understand. That was kind of what I just wanted to know, whether or not we were going to make it configurable or not. So, and we can add it as an option to notification controller when you start it. So at least people who really want to disable it can disable it.
Yeah.
But I'll try to get that done this week.
Thank you.
I don't think it's going to be making in the 0.10, but it will make it next release then. That sounds good. Yeah,
there is also a bug in notification controller where, or at least some user said it mixes the description. So maybe you could also look into that. It's probably a bug I made with 4 providers, 4 alerts, and I'm guessing something there is not forwarded correctly.
Different. Oh, it's 2 hours ago. Okay, I'll read that later. Yeah. I'm also trying to solve that issue which came up yesterday, the support for GitHub Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
this is that guy who wanted to use. Yeah, so I just created a draft PR now, which he was supposed to try because I don't have GitHub Enterprise to try on.
Yeah, we do a similar thing in Bootstrap. So what we do in Bootstrap, when you say Bootstrap GitHub, the default host name is github.com or gitlab.com, right? But you can override the host name. Now you cannot do that in notification controller, but the way you are, you are looking inside the HTTP that the HTTP address that was provided, and then switch the provider is basically the same stuff. So looks good to me, but we should also do it for GitLab.
GitLab does it today. So GitLab supports self-hosted, and Azure DevOps does too. It was just GitHub doesn't because it has a different client depending on if you run GitHub self-hosted or you don't. So that it was just something that I had missed. So it was just easy couple of lines to change. So it wasn't that bad.
Cool. Thank you, Philip.
Let's see the agenda. Yeah, doesn't look like we have anything else to discuss today, unless we have time. So if there's somebody feels like they want to discuss something, that's fine. Yeah, if nothing else, I think we can be happy for today's meeting. We don't have any action points, right, for next time. No. Okay. Yeah. So 0.10 will be released on Friday, right? Or do we have a date set for that?
I think earlier than that.
Okay.
Hidde said the Bootstrap version 2 will not be ready this week. So the only thing that we have to do to make the release is change the Flux create image automation commands to accept different branches and update the guides. And I think that will happen today or tomorrow morning. So tomorrow evening we'll have 0.10 if nothing breaks.
Okay.
Or no major bug is found until then.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week, Thursday, right? Thursdays. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye.